Welcome back to Swine TV. Todd Heisterkamp from Crystal Spring Hog Equipment.
Good morning.
So we got some information from you guys recently. New research provides benefits of wet, dry feeding again. Can you We're going to dive into this today, but can you start by giving our audience a brief overview of yourself and Crystal Spring?
Yeah. As you said, I'm Todd Heisterkamp, and my role is Executive Director of Business Development for Crystal Spring Hog Equipment. I've been working with them about a little over 12 years in a management role. And of course, Crystal Spring Hog Equipment, world renowned for being the inventor of the wet dry shelf feeder. Over 40 years ago now, I think, is when we introduced that technology.
So during COVID, it's something we want to forget, but I know
Right.
you guys were busy during the pandemic doing extra research, and you took the opportunity to drive results and gain knowledge. So with this new study, you guys partnered with Pipestone. So
Mhm.
lay it out for us. What do we need to know?
Yeah, well, the pandemic created all sorts of business problems, particularly for for us in our on our business development side. So instead of sitting at home and hiding, or during the pandemic, we knew that we had to continue to press forward. And so the opportunity came with us. Actually, it was slightly before the pandemic hit for us to work with Pipestone. And Pipestone Applied Research, which is their research division, came to us and said, "Hey, we have questions, and we want to collaborate together." So it was really a collaborative effort. Of course, they had questions regarding the performance, so they could have a consistent understanding and message of wet dry feeder performance compared to dry feeder performance, and also about sustainability as it relates to water. So they really wanted to look at do research on that data, and of course we're always looking to drive improvement and drive innovation. And so we work together, and of course, we have a lot of data, over 40 years of experience of production data. And so it's always good to get fresh new data, particularly help us drive our innovation.
So can you talk to me about caloric conversion and water disappearance?
Yeah, so caloric conversion is kind of an interesting thing. When we collaborated and put the protocols together, and what we wanted to answer is, as it relates to caloric conversion, there's a wide variety of feedstuffs in feed formulations. Whether it's corn, soy, wheat, distiller grains. So there's a variety of formulations all over the world. The one consistent thing, no matter what you use in the feed, is calories. Is what's the measure of energy. And so that was what was interesting to us, is it kind of gives us a universal measurement of that energy, and it turned out to be a statistical significant improvement using the wet dry feeder over dry feeding.
What about the overall performance summary?
Yeah. So, in conventionally, a lot of our data that we've gathered over the last 40 years has been live performance weight data, average daily gain, feed efficiency, feed intake. This actually working with Pipestone provided us the opportunity to not only do those live weights, but through their Holstone slaughtering facility, we were actually able to look at carcass weights with that. And so that became pretty interesting to us, because, at the end of the day, that's where the money is how much meat you get out of that pig after you've taken all the intestines and guts out. So that was really, really interesting opportunity for us to approach. And so, having that carcass weight information just gives us a better understanding of the overall performance of the feeder in comparison the two feeder types. And then going back to sustainability, that's a hot topic right now, in animal agriculture, regardless of the species. And I think really it's being driven by consumers. The consumer wants to know, they want to be conscientious in how much of our natural resources, particularly water, is used in animal production or their meat production. So, and ultimately as it relates to climate change, and not here to debate that, but the consumer is concerned about that. And I think as an industry, we want to answer that. We want to be able to answer those concerns or those questions that they may have. So.
And how's the research being perceived, or what feedback are you getting? I know people can find it on Swine Web and then the Crystal Spring website.
Yeah, I think it's pretty significant. Between the two feeder types, and don't want to do a deep dive in the data, but there was over a 53% change in water disappearance. So in the wet dry feeder, it used 53% less water, and so I think that was quite surprising to us. Our data that we've done over the last 20 years, and it's almost 20 years old, information that we have gathered, and then Kansas State did some research, and it was about 35% difference in water disappearance. We were pretty interested in doing new data because about 4 or 5 years ago we introduced our adaptive flow technology, adaptive flow nipple, that as we designed it to the technology to manage water right into the feeder. And so we were really interested in looking at fresh data on that. And again, we had always talked about being, a third less water disappearance. Now we're over 50%, which is pretty significant. And then again, at how sustainability on how you manage manure, whether you are pumping a pit and fertilizing a cornfield in Iowa, or whether you have a sophisticated lagoon system because of government requirements in Chile, for example, to be able to get rid of the manure. And so less water gives you better fertilizer content for Iowa, and makes that lagoon process faster for the rest of the world that just can't take the manure right out of the pit and put it in the cornfield.
So what is the overall conclusion and key take-home message that people need to know?
Yeah, I think, again, it's kind of that caloric intake, given that consistency that you can measure this, you can measure it based on your calories, and we know that the wet dry feeder has better performance. And then if you look at carcass weight, you can really, really measure the full value of the pig, and as I said earlier, that's really where the money is. At the end of the day, that's where the money is for both the producer as well as the slaughterhouse.
So wet and dry feed pandemic learning with Todd Heisterkamp. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much.